First of all, to thank the chairperson of this World Women Economic Forum and also Dr. Rupa Vasudevan, the Vice Chancellor of RTU and other organizers for inviting me to share some of my views this evening. I welcome all of you to my brief talk. Concentrating on the emerging trends in agricultural sciences and equal opportunities to all in the developing countries. I'm sorry, I have a bad throat. I will be concentrating on education part of it, and part of it is on the research aspect. Which one? Either? This one. My previous speaker and my senior, Professor Kaliwal, has already given a brief glimpses of the Indian agriculture. I just would like to highlight that how much India shares in the world agriculture. We have more than 17% of the world's human and 11% of the livestock in India, and 4.2% of the world water we have in our country, and 2.4% of the world area, and 142 million hectares of the cultivable land, of which 60 million hectares is the irrigated land, and the cropping intensity is 138%. This cropping intensity is low in India compared to other countries, and we need to enhance this cropping intensity for boost up the production. And 52% of the population earns livelihood in agriculture. This is more important compared to any other country, especially in the developing countries. Most people live on the agriculture, and in India, more than 50% live on agriculture, and it contributes only 14.7% to GDP. If you look back at the contribution of agriculture to GDP just before or at the time of independence, it was more than 30%. Now it has come down to 14.7%, and Dr. Vasmani is an economist here, and probably he will be able to tell more details about the contribution of agriculture to GDP. And we just have only about 10% of the total exports. The distinct transitions in the history of agriculture, I will not take much time in this. What we had, not only in India, it is in most of the developing countries, how we have progressed. You can just see the bottom, y is equal to less than 0.5 tons per hectare. Now y is equal to 4 tons per hectare. You can just see the transition. It has started with less than 0.5 tons per hectare. Now we are at the stage of 4 tons per hectare. And you know that we witnessed the Green Revolution in 1964. That's where our food grain production was less than 52 million tons. Now we have the food grain production of more than 262 million tons, and probably we are expecting 5 to 10 million tons extra food grain production this year, because we suffered in the last 2 years because of the drought in some parts of the country, and the prediction for the monsoon for this year is above normal, and we expect the food grain production to cross 265 million tons this year. The emerging challenges which I have listed, the stagnating and declining productivity. If you compare the productivity potential of most of the crops in our country, it is much less compared to world average or the productivity potential in US and other developed countries. This is true not only with India, but even with other developing nations. And the depleting quality of the natural resources, biotic and abiotic stresses, inefficient use of agri inputs, regional imbalances in productivity and production, lack of qualified manpower in frontier areas, then high post-harvest losses, biofuels. Strengthen in order to cap the gaps, what we need to do is to strengthen the research base in interdisciplinary manner to reach yield levels of China and Vietnam as far as rice is concerned. In these countries, the yield levels have gone up to 70 to 80 quintals per hectare, but the yield levels in our country is just between 30 to 40 quintals per hectare. That is 3 to 4 tons per hectare, almost double the yield what we get in India. Planning research programs based on farmers' feedback. We plan the research just for the sake of research. We don't look into the real problems of the farmers. We have to really consider the problems of the farmers, then we plan our research. Encouraging industry-driven farming. We are not really bothered about the industries. When we go conduct any kind of research, we are not really concerned about what is really required by the industry, whether the industry wants nutraceuticals, phytochemicals, or vitamin-rich crops, and all those things. Then focusing on developing organic varieties under resource conservation technologies and organic seed production. Now it is the era of organic farming. And recently, probably you are aware that our Honorable Agriculture Minister declared Sikkim as the organic state. And we have also started, ICR has already started our International Organic Research Institute at Sikkim. So that is one initiative by Government of India very recently, and it is yet to start. The institute, it has already been declared. And then we have forgotten, if you look back the agriculture, what our ancestors are following, like my fathers and forefathers, and those days, the agriculture, they never used any chemical fertilizers, they never used any pesticides. Now everyone uses chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and we are going back, and the organically produced foods are fetching more price in the market, especially in the international market, maybe 3 to 4 times higher prices than the foods produced through using chemical fertilizers and the pesticides. Then encourage multidisciplinary programs in a consortium mode to address problems of smallholders and the farmers. If you take the average land holdings in our country, the average land holdings is less than 1 hectare. Maybe it is between 1 to 1.5 acres it comes to. But if you compare the land holdings in other developed nations, like in Canada and US, the land holdings are 2 to 3,000 hectares. And here it is just 1 or 2 hectares, or maybe less than 1 hectare. And that's why we have to concentrate our research, what is really required for the small farmers and the small land holdings. Manipulation of phenotypic architecture to suit requirements of system of rice intensification and system of wheat intensification, organic agriculture and conservation agriculture. Because the phenotype of the plant determines the yield levels. That we have forgotten. We have only bothered about the genetic manipulation, but we also have to think of the phenotypic manipulation of the crop architecture. That is very important. Developing varieties and the hybrids with the health protecting minerals, vitamins and phytochemicals. Dr. Kaliwal was mentioning about vitamin A rich foods, vitamin D rich foods, vitamin K rich foods. We have to concentrate on those things to mitigate the malnutrition problems in this country. Then suitable post-harvest technology losses. We are losing approximately about 50,000 to 60,000 crores rupees through post-harvest losses every year. We have to, because there is a saying, a grain produced is a grain saved is a grain produced. We produce, but we are unable to save because we don't have infrastructure for saving the crops or the crop produce which we have been doing. Then improved storage techniques. There are a number of improved storage techniques which needs to be adopted in most of the developing countries, but I will just give an example. I was a visiting scientist in McGill University, Canada. I was taken to a apple cold storage center. And the apple cold storage, because you know whatever the apple which comes to the market in other countries is the apple produced of the last year, not the apple produced this year. They perfectly store for 1 year because they have the buffer of 1 year apple production. That kind of cold storages they have in other countries, but we don't have that kind of a cold storage. And now the government of India has started funding for the cold storage facilities, and probably with the initiation of the government of India, we are going to have less post-harvest losses, which is the need of the hour, because in any case we cannot improve or enhance the cultivable land. The cultivable land is 142 million hectares. Every year the cultivable land is shrinking because of the urbanization, because of increase in the population and so many things. We cannot increase but only thing is we have to go for the vertical expansion, and in that vertical expansion it is again a lot of hurdles are there in the vertical expansion. That's why at least whatever we produce, that needs to be saved, and we have to give a lot of importance for the post-harvest technology losses in all the developing countries. Orienting research programs towards mitigating global climate change, inducing heat, cold and drought tolerance. Because if I remember correctly, about 15 to 20 years back, when I was a professor of physiology, people used to speak of climate change. I said that some people have no business and they have bought this climate change terminology and they want to popularize this climate change terminology. But now if you really look into the changes which are occurring around us, like unpredictable monsoon, unpredictable rains, hailstorms, and so many things. Climate change is really happening. That I am realizing that whatever they predicted, my predecessors, the seniors predicted, is coming true. And we do have the climate change scenario in not only in this country, across the globe. We have this climate change, and we have to cope up with the climate change. Because if you see, the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. The carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere about 25 years back, it was 330 ppm. When we were reading as a students, or even when I was teaching as a professor, I used to teach CO2 concentration is 330 ppm. Now, in the textbooks, which are printed of late, and the research articles, and if you actually measure in the field, the CO2 concentration is crossed 385 ppm. That means in the last 20 years, from 330 to 380, 390, so that's about 60 ppm rise in the carbon dioxide level. There are many adverse effects. One thing is, there are both positive effects as well as the negative effects of enhancing the CO2 concentration. From the point of crop productivity, enhancing the carbon dioxide concentration is really required, because most of our crops do respond positively to enhanced carbon dioxide concentration. But in terms of rise in the atmospheric temperature, it will have an adverse effect. So that's why we have to look into all those things when we plan for the climate change research. And improving the water use efficiency, which is another very important aspect which we have forgotten, and that's why the biotechnological research is really required in terms of breeding crops for drought and heat tolerance. That is really required in this country, and not only in this country, in all the developing nations. Then platform on genomics and transgenic research needs to be strengthened. Off-season crop production under protected cultivation, which is coming up very well in our country. And then urban and peri-urban horticulture, that is also coming up now. Then employing GIS and remote sensing for detailed soil resource mapping and LUP. These are some of the initiatives which every nation has to take, especially in the developing countries. And India in the world food basket, you can just see, we are first in rank in the world, first in the food in pulses production, and first in the milk production. The pulse production is only about 17 million tons at present, but we need to enhance to the target of Government of India is to enhance the pulse production from present 17 million tons to at least 22 million tons by 2020 in the next 5 years. The efforts are going on, and this year is the International Year of Pulses. Lot of importance is being given for cultivating pulses across the nation. I will come back to the system. Indian Agriculture Research Institute, where I work, it is the largest national agriculture research education system in the world. So we have 101 research institutes. Now at present 643 Krishi Vijnana Kendras, 73 agriculture universities, and we are going to have in the next couple of years, the number of KVKs are going to be 1200. Already our Honorable Agriculture Minister has declared that they are going to enhance the KVKs to 1200. You can just imagine the